Government was required by law to submit a fiscal impact assessment on the ExxonMobil petroleum agreement before Parliament approved the deal. But a year after the deal was ratified, the Finance Ministry has yet to comply with the Public Financial Management Act, which requires the ministry to disclose how much the tax waivers and exemptions granted the U.S. oil giant cost the state. Joynews' Kwete Nate has also been exploring why ExxonMobil was granted immunity under the Foreign Transaction Act, which imposes restrictions on transfer of currencies abroad.
In the official report of parliamentary debate on 3rd April 2019, the government of Ghana assured the Parliamentary Select Committee on Finance that the fiscal impact assessment on the ExxonMobil petroleum agreement to explore oil in Ghana's deep waters would be submitted to the House. This is a requirement under the Public Financial Management Act 2016. The document was expected to provide an insight into how much ExxonMobil's tax waivers and exemptions under the agreement is costing the state. The law provides that, quote, any legislation to be laid before Parliament or proposal submitted for the approval of Parliament shall be accompanied by a fiscal impact analysis stating the estimated effect on revenues and expenditures for the financial year in which the legislation or proposal is expected to come into effect. The fiscal impact analysis will determine the benefits the country will derive from the agreement and how this relief would impact the revenue of the country. But Joynews checks have revealed government has failed to submit the fiscal impact assessment on the agreement. Former Deputy Finance Minister and member of the Finance Committee in Parliament, Ato Forson, confirms to Joynews the agreement was approved without this critical report. He's however disappointed that for over a year now, the government is dragging its feet and has still not remedied this breach of the law.
The government of Ghana promised us that they are going to cost them and bring them to Parliament for approval. It will surprise you to know that indeed a year now, government of Ghana had failed to provide to us how much it's going to cost the taxpayer in terms of tax exemptions that we are granting.
But Vice Chairman of the Energy Committee, George Duker, defends government, arguing that such delays are characteristic of how Parliament works when it comes to ratifying agreements.
We just resumed, and at the appropriate time when we get to know the details. Yes, you know, some of these things. Yesterday I was in Parliament and I was having a discussion with a friend, and they said they came to Parliament to discuss 2016 audit report. I mean, PAC report 2016. It's not 2017. So yes, it could be a year, but I believe as far as this industry is concerned, I would say that we're still within time. Yes, it's good. You are monitoring, you're tracking.
ExxonMobil Exploration and Production Ghana Limited, according to the agreement, is to explore its deep water Cape 3 Points block offshore for 25 years if commercial discovery is made.
This day has been a good day in the sense that we have brought into our oil space a company with the strength, the reputation and competence. And that nameplate, ExxonMobil, in our oil and gas exploration space will indeed give us a lot of credit in the industry.
We are excited to bring our technology, and as you said, you know, we have a unique place on that, and we are looking forward to working here, to opening an office here, to working with you to hopefully find and have success in this ultra deep water.
It's a good day for Ghana, and I hope it's going to be a good day for Exxon. It's been a relatively tortuous road to bring you to Ghana, but you're here. And I want to welcome you very warmly.
Government came under a backlash from civil society groups, including the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, over this deal. They sounded the alarm because open competitive bidding, which is the recommendation of the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act 2016, was not followed. This is a position the former Deputy Finance Minister, Ato Forson, has supported in the past. But chief among the worries of the former Deputy Finance Minister is a blank check of waivers and exemptions brought to Parliament a year ago. Mr. Fawcett places the cost of waivers and exemptions at billions of dollars based on discussions with Finance Ministry officials. Steve
Mantiel is chairman of Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas. He joins us via Zoom with more on this. Good evening, Mr. Mantiel. Thanks so much for joining us. What are your concerns with the Foreign Transaction Act, which has been breached in favor of ExxonMobil?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, indeed, I've had the occasion in time past to raise serious concerns about the ExxonMobil contract negotiations. I recall that I did some analysis of the contract and thought that we were giving away too much for too little. At the time, the Deputy Minister for Energy in charge of petroleum indicated to me that I was using the wrong version of the contract. But subsequently, when the contract was approved, I realized that nothing much had changed from the draft I worked on. Now, first and foremost, it's important for Ghanaians to note that this is not the first time ExxonMobil had tried to get into Ghana. This time around, they succeeded. But the first time was when Cosmos Energy wanted out of the Jubilee field, and so indicated intent on selling its stake to ExxonMobil. Of course, the then government resisted and claimed a right of first refusal, which indeed was not backed by PNDC Law 84. But somehow, Cosmos Energy decided that, well, if government will not let it sell to ExxonMobil, then it was sticking around. And that is how come Cosmos actually stuck around the Jubilee project. Subsequent to that, in 2015 thereabout, I think ExxonMobil indicated intent of entering our oil industry and started a negotiation with the then government, headed by former President John Mahama. In the course of negotiations, there were some stalemate situations regarding certain reliefs that ExxonMobil was seeking, including the right to repatriate their foreign exchange and earnings 100% out of the country. The Bank of Ghana wouldn't have this and insisted that the law applied to ExxonMobil just like any other company. As a result, the negotiations stalled, and so no conclusion was reached. ExxonMobil only took advantage of change in government to come back when the current government took over power. And the impression was created that they were continuing the previously, previous negotiations that
from where the Mahama government started.
Exactly, they were continuing. When in actual fact, that negotiation lapsed following the fact that the two parties had given themselves 7 months period within which to reach an agreement, or everything kind of collapses. And so when the ExxonMobil came, we had PND, or what do you call it, the new Petroleum Act, which is Act 919 of 2016 in place, which actually makes open contracting the default arrangement for allocating oil blocks. To escape this, the government created the wrong impression that they were not starting a new negotiation and that they were continuing. And so that is how they got around the EMP Act, which makes open contracting a default position of the law. And then this time around in the new negotiations insisted, and I mean ExxonMobil insisted, that Bank of Ghana was excluded from the negotiation team. And that is how come they got all the waivers, especially the foreign exchange repatriation waiver they got from the government. And so for me, the concern really has been how, as a people, we cannot champion a common national interest and therefore allows investors to take advantage of the political divisions among us to shortchange this country. And this is what we have ended up with. Widespread tax expenditures which have not been properly accounted for as required by the Public Financial Management Act.
How do we move on from here, especially with regards to getting government to comply with the law in such agreements?
Well, non-compliance is a violation of the law. So it behoves on anybody, any Ghanaian who feels concerned, including Parliament itself, to go to court and seek a mandamus for government to comply.
And what has your platform done about this?
Well, we are contemplating options about remedying what we see as deception of Parliament in getting the contract.
I think we're losing Dr. Manteo, but he makes the point clear that it's a violation of the law and the law must take its course. Okay, so Dr. Manteo is back. Doc, you are making the point that your platform is considering legal redress. Hello, Dr. Manteo, you're on Joynews Prime. Dr. Manteo, if you can unmute, I think we're losing you.
Right.
Great, you're back.
Right. Yeah, so the point I was making is that I cited a memorandum to Parliament which, in my view, did not present the facts as it were to Parliament and got Parliament on the basis of what I see as a misleading representation to ratify the ExxonMobil agreement. And this we think has to be remedied through some legal processes because Parliament did not have the full facts of the matter in arriving at a decision to ratify the contract. I've indeed spoken to some members of the opposition party who were privy to these issues as to how come they sat by for Parliament to be misled. They claim on that day when the contract was tabled for ratification, the minority boycotted proceedings. And so that is how come the majority did what they did. And that has actually caused this country a substantial amount of money.
Dr. Manteo, John Jinapor joins us right now. I'd like you to stay on with me. John Jinapor is a member of the Mines and Energy Committee. He's a former Deputy Power Minister and also a member of Parliament for Yape Kusogu. Good to have you, Honorable Jinapor. Why hasn't Parliament ensured that Ghanaians know the cost of waivers granted ExxonMobil? It's been a year now.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me commend you. Let me commend Dr. Manteo and the rest of the Ghanaian society who have taken a keen interest in our petroleum sector. The petroleum sector is a critical area in the socio-economic development of this country. And so if we do not guard it, we do not work assiduously to ensure that we benefit from it, eventually we would regret even finding petroleum products or petroleum resources in our country. Parliament works in a bicameral way. There's a minority and there's a majority. And so in the minority, what we can do is to push. I heard Dr. Manteo indicate that we boycotted it. That's a parliamentary tool. If our voice is not being heard, if we are pushing for details, if we are pushing for scrutiny, and the majority insists that they would not listen to us, the only thing we can do is to boycott. There's no other way because they wanted to take the vote on the floor of Parliament. One, we indicated that the time was too short and that we needed to do more consultation. We also indicated that looking at the cost of the project and the amount involved, we should involve civil society like that of Dr. Manteo and others, so that together we can build consensus. We are having this problem today because the majority decided to railroad through the system. If we had built consensus, if we had listened to each other, I am sure that won't be where we are, because that very issue you are raising in terms of the tax waivers and the concessions is a precondition. It's a precondition. The Act 921, specifies that you must give the cost implication and the impact to Parliament before Parliament grants such waivers. And so it's not as if you grant that waiver before you even begin to work on bringing the cost to us. And so that should have been met, that should have been satisfied before we granted that condition. But Doc, you may fall the minority, you may want to push the minority further. But given the situation and the way Parliament works, we had no option than to walk out because it was on the floor. At the committee level, we disagreed. And so if you look at the committee report, you would not get a unanimous decision. But on the floor, when the majority wants to use its majoritarian voice to approve it, we thought that we should boycott it so that it will be on record that the minority was not part of this approval. And today we are witnessing the challenges. More than a year, you cannot do a tax assessment and provide it to Parliament. It's most unfortunate. And I'm surprised that we're having all these challenges. And don't forget, we extended the tax breaks in terms of the payment from 5 years to 10 years. The Exxon agreement, for me, is not good for this country. And I think that we must learn from this issue.
What have you done so far beyond the boycotting of the approval of the agreement? It's been a year now. And how do you also intend to push for the Finance Ministry to comply with this law, requiring it to submit the fiscal impact analysis?
It's not just this one. Even the AGM agreement, the ACE agreement, Parliament was specific. We are giving you a specific period of time. Go and increase Ghana's stake and report back to Parliament. It's more than 6 months. That has not been done. After the 6 months, this government rather came with all kinds of concessions for the same agreement. We have filed questions, we have filed motions, we've served notices until the Speaker accepts those motions and allows those questions or motions to be moved on the floor of Parliament. It is virtually difficult. And I must commend you especially for taking this up. That is what we expect the media fraternity to do. And so we'll partner with you, we would work together, not just for the minority. This is for the country Ghana, so that all of us would whip up interest and then we ensure that the nation benefits from its petroleum resources.
Dr. Mantea, you've been listening to John Jinapor and his explanations, but your firm seeks to do something about this. How soon?
Well, we're still talking to lawyers and seeking further guidance. And so we cannot put timelines to this. But let me make the point that this is not the first time we are getting ourselves into this kind of situation. And I think Honorable Jinapor makes that point. Even in the Sinopec agreement, tax waivers were approved by Parliament 2 clear years after the project has been completed. So what if Parliament had decided not to grant the waivers? Where were we going to look for Sinopec to retrieve our money? And so as a people, we need to get serious. We've been so far very reckless with the public finances of this country, and that has to stop.
I'm grateful for your time. Dr. Steve Mantea is the chairman of Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas. John Jinapor is a member of the Mines and Energy Committee and also former Deputy Power Minister.